Our next speaker is a very interesting speaker, a very old friend of STC and QAI, and an amazing gentleman. From the time I first met him almost like 7 years back, he's always continued to impress me with some of the technological innovations that they've made in their product Pcloudy. And I'm very happy to introduce Avinash, who is the co-founder of Pcloudy. And for those of you who do not know Avinash, Avinash is a very passionate, a very focused tech entrepreneur. And in the last 15 years, he has founded multiple ventures in the B2B enterprise and software as a service space. He always is a very simple gentleman, but at the same time, he's a very strong problem solving mind. And I've always enjoyed having conversations on how he looks at a problem, how he solves a particular problem, and how he leverages technology. And he spends a lot of his time resolving the digital testing challenges that app developers and QA professionals encounter. He's currently co-founder of Pcloudy, which is a continuous testing cloud platform for all app testing needs. And some of the core capabilities in their product have, as I've seen it evolve from doing shift left testing to DevOps integration to advanced automation to AI-based visual testing to robotic process automation. I think he's one person who probably used his IIT degree really well, right? So without much ado, let me introduce Avinash, to the audience. Avinash, will be speaking on a very interesting topic, which is how do we bulletproof our mobile and web apps. And Avinash, as always, really look forward to hearing your, again, a provocative, in your own quite nice manner, you tell us like, this is what the world is changing to, and this is how we changed it. So love to hear your thoughts there, Avinash. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Pradeep. Hope you can hear me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. It's always a pleasure, Pradeep, to be there at STC. This time, I hope that we'll be able to meet face to face and say hello, Bangalore. But on the flip side, I'm really glad to see a global audience from different places other than Bangalore. So glad to be here. And looking at so many folks here, I can really guess that FIFA break has given everyone a good sleep. So everyone is able to join early in the morning. Great to have all of you here. Um, I mean, I heard the discussion between you and Raghu. Uh, Great conversation, and I think it has set the tone for my session. A lot of context has been set, so I hope it'll be easier for the audience to relate to what I'm going to talk about. A lot of data points were shared. The problem statement were shared by Raghu in his talk and in the discussions that you had with him. I'll be taking over from there and going probably one level deeper into how to build a digital immune system. Let me share my slide and just point me if you are able to see it clearly. Uh,
Yeah.
can someone confirm if the slide is visible?
Yes, it is
Yes, it is
visible.
visible. Okay, that's great. So thank you again. I can see many of our customers and partners in the audience list. Thank you so much for trusting us, and thanks everyone present here for this session. It means a lot that you're taking your time for this session. First thing first, a customary introduction for the new faces. So Pcloudy is the most comprehensive continuous testing cloud for mobile and web apps. We work with global and most progressive brands across healthcare, financials, and governments, some of the names that you can see here. With 5+ global locations, one of the most diverse set of device browser combinations, we have enabled enterprises to run millions of automated tests in last 6 years. And these numbers would mean nothing until you try us. So I would look forward to talk to you more on the booths, or go ahead and try the product. There is a free trial available. So with that note, let's delve into the crux of the session, right? So the tech world is moving towards immersive experience, and in last 2 years, I would say last 3 years, the pandemic has pushed us to learn many new vocabs, from social distancing to quarantine to how vaccines are developed. We got to know so many new things. And one of the significant shift that we have seen is our awareness towards uh, immunity and personal health in general. It's really amazing to see how our body responds to immunity and how it protects us from the outside danger, right? On the business side as well, last 2 years, we saw a huge shift in the digital acceleration. It happened at a never before seen pace. So, uh, would it not be great that our digital systems also have some kind of immunity to protect us from the dangers or the failures that can impact the systems? So, in that context, I hope to give you some perspective on how to build the digital immune applications. And in that context, uh, we all are aware how the application landscape has changed in last decades, from the standalone application to cloud to social to emerging immersive experiences through metaverse and all the technologies associated with it. But if you look at the product or application in as a whole, uh, this is personally my view. Building a product from last 7 8 years, uh, what makes a product or an application, until we understand that, we'll not be able to think about what is the digital immunity or what is the digital immune system that we're talking about. So quick perspective on what makes a product or an application. So basically, these are four quadrants of any product or applications that I have seen, which makes any application or product holistic. So first one, which is the most obvious one, is the product function, and very obvious explanation: does it meet requirement or specifications? But the rest of the three are big support systems for any product application, and until unless we focus on those, we'll not be able to look at holistic picture of any product or application, right? So the second quadrant talks about the product usage. So how frequently customers are using the product, which are the features used by product most, which are the features not used by the product, by the users. A third one is the value of the customer, value to the customer. So, what value a feature provide to the customer? Whatever new release that we are doing, is it making any addition to the value to the customer or the user? Are we making more fans of the product by releasing new features, or other way? So, until unless we know the value to the customer, will not be able to create a holistic experience. And the last one, which is extremely important, and Raghu also talked about it: resilience. So, how resilient the application is. Bugs are a reality. You cannot deliver a 100% perfect product. And considering the external factors which are existing in today's world, like vulnerabilities can come from anywhere. How can you recover from some of the crashes or falls or failures defines the resilience of the product and application. So until we look at these four quadrants together holistically, I would not call this product or application complete. So this is the view that we have taken as we have developed Pcloudy, and I talk to many of the customers when they talk about how to build a product. This is the framework that we should be using. Now, the challenge that we see here is, in spite of all the talk that we see around digital transformation and various new methodologies, DevOps, Agile, um, uh, being practiced in many organizations, still the majority of the focus is on the product function side. So it's typically about user interface, integrations, uh, kind of focusing on checking off the checklist. It could be requirement checklist, it could be specification checklist, but the objective is to finish the checklist and deliver it. That is what we call it output based approach, where your objective is to deliver the output. What we need is a completely different approach. We'll talk as we go along, but just to give you a word for it, outcome based approach, where we talk about the outcome. How are we going to improve the experience of the customer, right? How are we going to how are we going to make the frequency of the usage of the product more? That's the outcome we have to look at, rather than just checking off the checklist. So move from output to outcome based approach is something which is needed. And if you look at this whole circle here, if we start looking at all the aspect, I think the shift will be there. Right now the focus is on one quadrant in majority of the organization. I'm not saying many of you are not practicing the other aspect of it, but majority of the organizations are still at the function level. So this is where a shift of mindset is required, and Raghu also talked about bringing innovation in the thinking. So if we have to move to the holistic experience, we need to think differently, and start thinking about a different kind of framework. And this is where something like digital immune systems come into play. This gives you a way to start thinking as to how do we bring this holistic nature of the product, how do we deliver a holistic experience to the customers. So without delaying it, what you see is another circle. And this circle kind of defines what a digital immune system is. And this has been propagated by Gartner quite in recent time. This has been talked about a lot. So again, it has various components. And if you look at different components, right, you would be able to relate back to what I was saying. So for example, we talk about usage. So some of the components here, like observability, is directly related to the usage pattern of the application. If you talk about resilience, chaos engineering, site reliability, all these are related to the resilience of the application. So if we look at holistically, we'll be able to map all the quadrants that we saw as part of the product or the application holistic experience. Now, just to kind of take it to the next level, quickly talk about summary of each so that you relate to it. Observability, it allows the system to be seen and monitored, right? And this is very important to understand how the users are using the product, right? What is the health of the application at any given point of time? And it also allows the team to spot any problems or anomaly and isolate it. That's what you need in any application, again, to make it more resilient, to solve the problems more quickly and deliver an experience. So observability is a key, and there are you can build it internally within the tool, or there are so many external tools like, let's say, Amplitude or New Relic, Dynatrace, that can be used to improve the observability of the application. Now, the second part is AI augmented testing, which is more related to the function aspect of the product that I was talking about. And Pradeep also mentioned, now we have codeless automation tools, and we have gone beyond. We have gone beyond where there are AI augmented testing tools which improves the test outcome on a continuous basis from the previous results. And you don't have to go far. I mean, we have a bot, Certifier, which does exactly the same. You test multiple times, the outcome improves based on the previous results. And you don't require any human intervention to run some of the basic mobile application test. And a lot of organizations are already using it as part of their DevOps to get the first level of certifications. So you can use some of these AI augmented testing tools to really speed up the testing, free up the time to look at other aspects as well. And now AI is also helping in a lot of other areas of the testing. For example, test planning itself, creation, analysis. I'm not sure how many of you have looked at the Chat GPT release. You can try writing the test cases in an automated basis. Just say that write test case for um, uh, e-commerce application, and it can give you list of test cases there. So there are the world is moving to a different level altogether, where we need to start using AI augmented testing uh, to minimize the human intervention. And it's not that humans will be replaced. Humans and AI will work together, and you would be able to spend more time on some of the other areas, and have your function testing mostly dependent on some of these codeless tools or AI augmented testing. The third one is more related to the reliability or resilience aspect of it that I was talking about. Chaos engineering, which is the new area which has come up, and especially in the complex applications where there are multiple components interacting with each other, it's very difficult to visualize how it behaves in a production kind of environment, and what happens if there is a failure somewhere. So from the digital immunity perspective, this becomes extremely important to predict some of the failures by doing fault injection to uncover weaknesses and vulnerabilities. A big area for achieving resilience for the products. Auto-remediation. Now, we talked about self-healing in automation scripts, and some of the tools have already provided. How do we provide auto-healing within the applications itself? So, for example, if there is a disk space, disk space of a particular server is increasing, can we clean up automatically? If a particular version of the application somehow start behaving, if there is a bug, can we fall back on the previous versions? These are some of the self-healing capabilities that we need to start thinking while building the application, right? And from the testing point of view, it's very important that, are we even thinking about testing those kind of features, or we are just kind of releasing the current version of the product for the specification? So some of these auto remediation capabilities are extremely important to be, and to have the inbuilt capability within the application itself uh, becomes a key part of the digital immune system. Sorry, the animation is somehow okay. So another area that is becoming important is site reliability engineering, where it's all about SLAs of the application. So how do you meet SLA? Again, there was a question around how do we, by default, hygiene factor is 99.9% for today's time. How do you improve further? So site reliability engineering is all about having the SLAs in place, and someone constantly monitoring and doing a check, and only releasing those features which meet that kind of requirement. That has become a key part of the digital immune system. And finally, the last one, which is the app supply chain security. And this is not just about application security, it's all about the whole of supply chain that exists while you're developing applications. So you might be using certain tools, open source packages, while developing the application itself. Is the whole supply chain secure? Because we saw in recent time log4j vulnerability, how it impacted everyone, right? There has been so many other attacks which were on the tools itself, which are used to build the application. So if we are vulnerable there, our application delivery will get impacted. So we have to look at application security from the supply chain perspective. It's not just about the one aspect of it. So this whole circle, if you look at holistically, will force you to think about, or will give you a framework to think about a digital immune system. And again, I'm repeating what I said earlier. It forces you to think beyond the functionality, or even the performance or security. It takes the paradigm to a different level, where all the four quadrants of the product are taken care, right? Now, so what, having kind of set the context of what a digital immune system is, what shift can we create within our testing practice for web and mobile applications? So this is where I think I would talk about some steps, 5 steps to reach there. And the 5 steps are kind of guideline for you to start thinking about. Uh, So first one, the key is the building of monitoring system. And um, I'm sure some of you already might be doing this, where you have built monitoring system for your production server. Um, we have customers who are running 24 by 7 scripts to monitor the app health check on the production server itself, where they monitor the CPU, memory, battery utilization, other functional aspect of it. So until we build the monitoring system, we'll not be able to kind of build the core component of the digital immune system. And there are various aspects of monitoring, for example, app monitoring, infra monitoring, service monitoring, end-to-end monitoring. And some has to be done from the testing side, some has to be done from the ops side. But then until we start thinking holistically, we'll not be able to uh, create a monitoring system which gives us that observability we were talking about. So that's the first step of it. Second is enable continuous testing. Needless to say, this has been there from quite some time, and we keep talking about it. I still see organizations using continuous testing only at specific places. So, for example, while we are pushing the build to QA, there are some automation scripts triggered, but continuous testing at its core has to go beyond, right? You have to test at every level. So for example, when the code is pushed, there has to be unit testing. When it goes to QA environment, there has to be other automated scripts. When it goes to production, we need to monitor it. At every stage there has to be uh, testing involved in an automated way as much as possible, so that we truly create a pipeline where deployments are happening automatically, and we are sure and confident about those releases. Um, the third aspect is improving infrastructure. Now, we can talk about continuous testing, we can talk about monitoring, but can it happen without improving the infrastructure part of it? And I have done this exercise with many of the customers. Ask a simple question while we are looking at the overall delivery mechanism or methodology or the testing practice. Am I waiting for something? I mean, you ask this question to yourself, am I waiting for something? That will give you a lot of answer where the bottlenecks are. Maybe you're waiting for the infra to be provisioned before you start running the test, and there is a delay there. Maybe you are waiting for the once the test scripts are executed to manually analyze and then improve the scripts further. So there are a lot of places where you'll find that this question will uncover a lot of interesting answers, and those are the areas where you need to focus on to automate as much as possible or bring processes to minimize that wait period, right? And one way definitely is to bring as many tools as possible. Without that, it's difficult, right? We want to reduce human intervention and bring more automation. So opt for tools to support your CI/CD, infra provisioning, monitoring, automated tests. I mean, needless to say, I mean, we have moved to a level of where you can use AI augmented automated tests as well. So right infra is the key to continuous testing. And another mistake that I've seen within organizations is they look for a perfect solution. There is no perfect solution when any organization is looking at infra to automate end to end, right? And again, I'm saying automation beyond the testing aspect of it, automation of the overall process itself, from infra to monitoring. There's no there's no one single solution available to it. So you need to be ready to find out something which is closer to your requirement, and then ready to build some own plugins, wrappers to make the process complete. Um, I mean, perfect is sometimes enemy of the good. So look at a good solution and then build your own support to make it perfect. That's the message I have on the info on this point, which is about improving the infrastructure. Uh, the fourth one, again, a shift in the way we look at testing is um, testing about unhappy paths, again related to the resilience part of it. I'm sure you're doing negative testing and all that, but this is beyond. When we talk about unhappy paths, it's all about simulating faults, right? You look at the overall system and then try to figure out where can the fault happen. If let's say I remove one particular server, what happens? So it's much beyond looking at some negative testing scenario. uh, it's all about chaos engineering that we talked about. It's about bringing testing the resilience of the application that we talked about. So it's not about doing the checklist that generally we follow, the test cases that we have. You need to think beyond, think as many unhappy paths as possible, and start including that as part of the testing. And last is about building a fallback strategy, which is the auto remediation we were talking about in the digital immune system. So within testing itself, we have to look at auto remediation. So in case test fails, how do we use AI to analyze the result and automatically maybe try to change the scripts? And now we have those mechanisms in place. In fact, Pcloudy itself supports, if you are using things like Selenium or Appium, if the scripts fail because of object problems, it can fix itself. It can help you fix itself. The reporting can be analyzed through AI systems much quicker, where you will be able to figure out whether these are bugs or these are scripts failures, and then take the corrective action. Other fallbacks I was talking about, it's not just about testing, right? It's about apps, whether your app has the remediation system in place or not. So if let's say app is not performing, can we fall back to the previous versions? It happens so many times that the there is a push to production and the app is not behaving properly, and then the whole exercise of rolling back and all that. So is there a auto remediation system where the app can go back to the previous version automatically? uh, that's the strategy we need to think about within the testing also. And again, thinking about creating your apps where it works in all kind of phases. A lot of times the apps, if there is no internet, uh, the apps doesn't work, but offline is the norm today. So similar kind of scenarios you'll have to think, uh, and it all relates to the uh, previous talk also. How do we think of the unhappy paths and build the auto remediation strategy within the applications, right, or within your testing framework? So, summarizing what we just talked about, there are 5 points that we spoke: build monitoring system, enable continuous testing, test an unhappy path, build a fallback strategy, and improve infrastructure. I think at a broad level, if these are the 5 points taken care, we are moving towards a very good digital immune system, digital immune applications. uh, so to do that, I would say it requires a shift of your mindset. And going back to what Raghu was talking about and Pradeep was talking about, it requires a culture change. It requires support from various level of your organization, but it has to start somewhere. So it can start from this change in mindset, where you start thinking of outcome and not output. An outcome, for example, is about how do I improve the product experience, or am I helping getting more customers, am I making the customers fan of the product? That's the outcome we have to look at, rather than output about doing the checking of the maybe test cases or checklists or specifications. So with that thought, I will conclude my uh, part here. Any questions, I'll be happy to take. It's up to you. How do you take the story and take it from there? So thank you so much for listening. I hope I have given some perspective on digital immune applications, and how do you start thinking of a framework. Any questions we'll love to take, and maybe we can also meet at booth and discuss more about uh, this topic and anything else. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Is there an echo? No, I'm not so sure why that is happening. Okay. So, okay. Can you hear me clear, Avinash?
Yeah, I can hear.
Perfect. Okay. Now, every time someone talks about health, immunity, I'm reminded of a very interesting Chinese quote, right? Like, and again, Chinese are interesting people. They were the ones who created COVID. However, they also said, may you live in interesting times. That was once what people wished their people. So now the context is very interesting because we are in interesting times. We are for a long time have been thinking very symptomatic treatment. We are shifting from being treated post facto to being preventive, which was from testing to assurance. And from assurance, we are actually saying, how do we change our lifestyle, so that we don't even need to go through an assurance. In fact, our lifestyle becomes assurance, correct?
Yeah.
And that's how you build immunity, because otherwise you can't uh, tackle the interesting times that we are getting into. Now, the question that comes up, very naturally thereby is, even immunity has four different aspects, correct? Like, there is something like a passive immunity, which people talk about. In the medical terminology, I'm referring to, just because I've just spent time trying to reduce weight for a long time that I had to figure out a lot of health issues.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, to move from a passive immunity, which kind of happens as a default, or by luck or by fluke, to building an innate immunity system is a long journey, correct? Because first it has to sink in that immunity is essential. Second, it has to sink in that we need to make lifestyle changes. And third, we have to say, let's check where our immunity levels are. And then finally, you have to say, how do I make it a habit? Correct. Now, how do you see the market really reacting to this concept? Are we early in the life cycle of telling the world go to immunity, or what's your view on that? In the sense, that's my question there.
Interesting point. I have pondered about it as well. So, if you look at, for example, some of the tech giants like Google's and Facebook's, they have been pioneer into this area. I mean, in fact, Google started probably 7, 8 years back. Concepts like resilience or site reliability, all that was brainchild of Google, and then Facebook and all adopted. So this has been there in the market for quite some time. The big tech giants have adopted, but large set of organizations are still struggling with some of the basics. However, in last 2 years, I have seen a shift in the mindset, at least at the top level, where people have started realizing that failures are unacceptable.
Mhm.
And it came through some of the data points Raghu was also sharing, that if your application fails, the consumers are not going to forgive you.
Mhm.
So that realization has definitely set in within for example, product owners or the application delivery leaders, but still they don't have the framework to think about it. And that is
Okay.
where I think a framework like digital immunity system gives a way to start thinking and building pieces of it, components of it. Of course, you can't do it like one shot change. You have
Mhm.
to start thinking what is extremely important to you. For example, if your application is not very complex, maybe site reliability could be taken later, right? But uh, if you're building a complex system, that has to be on priority. So the prioritization and those aspects of it has to be very contextual, depending on customer. But I'm seeing that at least the larger objective everyone is clear about, but people are not very clear about the framework, how to
Very
implement it.
nice.
And that is where I think Gartner has put it very nicely, and this is a Gartner concept. Gartner has put it very nicely, and I mean it's easier to adopt and start kind of thinking into that direction.
I know. Yeah, because at one point of time when resilience was a very popular concept, when the systems were mission critical. Now the
Absolutely.
interesting perspective that's happened is now every system is mission
Every
critical.
system is critical. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And every system is business critical.
Yeah.
So naturally, I think we are kind of reinventing what a rocket scientist
Yeah.
kind of thought about
Because
was essential. Yeah.
yeah, because I mean last 2 years, everyone has moved digital, right? Your business itself is dependent on digital. So you can't say that this is a secondary channel for me. It's the
Mhm.
primary channel for every business today. And any failure application, any problem there gets highlighted, and you can't just afford it. You lose brand value. I mean, we have seen so many instances where one particular problem kind of eroded the brand value itself. So you can't afford that. You are totally dependent on your application today, your digital application.
And I think the societal change, even in India, for example, which is the largest, let's say, IT producer and consumer, and I think there is a shift from a service orientation to a product orientation, or to an app orientation in
Absolutely.
many ways. And I think
Absolutely.
that's also kind of fueled that thought of, how do I make myself resilient, different, unique,
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
self-sustaining, kind of a model. I think that
Absolutely.
also kind of fueled it. Okay, so the next question from the audience, and I can keep talking forever, my me weakness, but I'll let the audience also ask the question. They're saying industry is talking about low code and no code development. In the similar lines, do you see testing industry also moving to no test kind of a situation?
In fact, it's other way, right? I mean, the focus on testing quality is much more than what it used to be probably a decade back. And areas, I mean, we talked about digital immune system. Each area requires intervention of testing.
Correct.
Now, the challenge or the discussion happens, who does the testing? Do we require, for example, devs to do testing, or do we require separate test teams to do? So there are different philosophies, and that discussion or debate can go on. But the importance of testing, there, I don't see any no test kind of situation. Of course, the testing can be more automated, where the test professionals are more involved in building the automated test cases rather than validating it manually. That's definitely a kind of phenomena which is going on. But the amount of thinking a testing team has to do has increased multifold. As I said, it's not just about functional specification. You have to think of so many aspects when you are part of the testing team, or you are responsible for the quality of the product in the application.
Yeah. So I'll probably summarize it in a easier note, saying even if you eat well and live healthy, you still need a doctor. So you still
Absolutely.
have to go do that.
Absolutely. Maybe you
That
can meet
doesn't
a doctor
guarantee.
online, but you
Yeah.
still need the doctor. Yeah.
Right. And the next question is, what are examples of augmented tests? And then is there any platform where these augmented tests can be performed?
Yeah. I mean, there are so many. I talked about one example from Pcloudy itself. That, let's say, if you
Mhm.
have a mobile application, you want to just test the application, whether it's crashing across different devices. You can just use our certifier bot. So that is one example of augmented AI testing, where you just
Mhm.
upload the application. You don't need to write any script, and the bot will do the testing itself on variety of devices, and you get the report back whether there are major crashes happening across different devices or not. So there are so many such examples which exist. As I talked about, for example, if there are script failures, it
Mhm.
can heal automatically by changing the object locators, etc. So now I think industry has started moving into a lot of these uh, specific solutions around testing problems that we see.
Mhm.
So you can start exploring various use cases that you have and see uh, which fits well. I would not be able to name different solutions here, but yeah, there are
Great.
a lot of possibilities available.
Yeah. The next question says, though there are many third-party no-code and low-code automation tools, there is still a resistance to use them and build our own or use open source tools. So, what's your view on that trend? Yeah.
I mean, it. I have seen there is no simple answer to it. It
Mhm.
depends on the audience. So, for example, we work with a lot of business enterprises, right? For example,
Mhm.
financial companies, insurance companies. Now, their core competency is not technology.
Mhm.
There are a lot of business users who are part of the testing. And if you ask the business users to do automation, of course, they
Yeah,
can't
won't.
do it with a Java based tool, etc. So for them, the codeless works very well, right? But if you are a very core tech organization where you have the competency, I think it's easier to just go ahead and use build your own tool or take open source, enhance it and use it. So it's contextual. You have to understand what is your strength, weakness, and then decide which tool to use. However, I would say the low code automation tools have evolved a lot. So it's maybe 5 6 years back, the capability that it provided were limited, but now the tools have evolved a lot, and I think it can be used for pretty much end-to-end automation as well. So it's not something which cannot be used even in a kind of tech organization, but still, considering the strength and weaknesses, it's contextual.
Got it. And is the digital immunity system that you proposed, is that some form of a diagnostic framework that people could adopt to see where they stand with regards to their hygiene and immunity, or is it something that is a service?
Service in the sense.
As in, does Pcloudy offer digital
No,
immunity
so
kind of a service,
so this
or
is,
is it more a
yeah, got
proposition?
it,
Yeah.
got it. So we talked about 5 points, right? I mean,
Mhm.
starting from, let's say, build a continuous testing framework to improve infrastructure. Now, Pcloudy provides a part of it. We as a solution cannot give you a complete digital immunity support as such. And I mentioned that in the improvement infrastructure point as well, that you have to look at different tools. For example, observability is a completely different area altogether, right? You might need to look at solutions like New Relic or App Dynamics to give you observability data. Uh, so Pcloudy is definitely one component that you'll have to use, where you're enabling continuous testing for your mobile and web applications. So
Mhm.
all your functional part of it can be covered, but some of the other areas, like maybe, as I said, observability or chaos engineering, will require some of the other tools which exist in the market.
Mhm.
So you'll have to bring those infrastructure components, those tools together, and then build an end-to-end system.
Mhm. And the last question that I have here is, do you think that the open source tools are keeping in pace with the licensed tools, and
Absolutely,
what do
I
you
would
see
say
their evolution coming there? Yeah.
I'm seeing a lot of places they are beating the commercial tools hands
Licensed tools.
down.
Okay. Okay.
And one area that open source has done very well is bring new innovations, which many cases the commercial tools have picked up and then built and started providing to the customer. But when it comes to the innovation, I think open source in recent times, last, I would say, 4 5 years, has beaten the commercial space hands down. So keep, even if you are using commercial tool, keep looking at the open source space in terms of what's new happening there, and then maybe look at whether your commercial tool supports that or not, and how do you bring that capability. And we at Pcloudy are big proponent of open source tools. So most of the automation tools that our customers use are open source, Appium, Selenium, and we provide the integration to it. So there is a large community where people are or organizations are using only open source tools.
Okay.
So you can definitely go ahead and choose open source as your one of the strategy. There's absolutely no challenge I see there.
Yeah, that's what I like about Pcloudy actually. Like, in the sense you're quite open and transparent about like where you start and where you don't.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
and I think the digital immunity system is a brilliant idea, because I think we are in the right way of thinking at the moment, where we are saying we just don't need to assure ourselves. And the sense Raghu opened up by saying assurance takes a different view, and
Yeah,
then you're actually saying let's go one step beyond the assurance. Let's actually
absolutely.
build immunity, and if immunity fails, which is the first line of control, then we can think about assurance, right?
Yeah,
So I think
absolutely.
that's a great way to look at how the whole landscape is changing. Really, really appreciate Avinash. It's always insightful, and I think both you and Raghu have made other speakers get a little scared, because now they're actually thinking the bar is set quite high. But I have to assure them, saying, as in it's a different perspective. Each one of us has an opinion, at the end of the day, we also agree to disagree, right? That's the best part of a community, and that's the best part of a conversation. So really, really appreciate and thank you for taking time from your busy schedule to attend this and give us your perspective. And as always, thanks again for supporting the whole initiative of community-led conferences. Okay,
Thank you so
thanks
much,
a
Pradeep.
lot. Yeah,
It's been a
yeah,
great journey with you, and always pleasure interacting with you.
my pleasure. Yeah.
STC has been a very close partner to us, and will continue to work along with you. So
Yeah,
thank you
my
so much.
my honest submission is very simple. I learn more in these 2 days than what I would learn in the whole year. The whole year, customers throw problems at me, and in these 2 days, I get all the solutions which supply me enough ammunition for the next one year. So, for me, this
Absolutely.
is the
For us
privilege
also,
to
the kind of
learn.
insights that we get talking to the customers, meeting them on the booths, is just irreplaceable. So we
My pleasure.
love to be part of it. And thank you so much, everyone who listened and provided. We love to hear the feedbacks and ask any question later on as well. Thank you so much.